Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ingrid and this is Ingrid Reads a Lot. For today's video, better late than ever, I thought I would tell you guys all about the books that I read in 2024. If you saw a previous video of mine, I mentioned that I had a pretty bad reading year in 2024, but I still read some really good books, and I think it would be a disservice not to tell you guys about them and to shout out these books that I thought were really good, even though overall the year wasn't that great reading wise. But let's see, why does this thing keep turning off? All right, let's get into this video and I will tell you guys all about my favorite books of 2024. I didn't put these books in any particular order in terms of least favorite to most favorite because a lot of these books are not the same genre. Some of them are, but I felt like it would be sort of a disservice to rank them, even though I like them for different reasons. All right, first up we have a novella, and it's Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This is a dark fairy tale fantasy novel about our main character Mara and her journey into saving one of her sisters. She's had a previous sister that passed away due to a bad marriage, and she doesn't want to see this happening again. She bands together with an unlikely group of people to save her sister. She has to do different magical things to make it happen, and she gets together with a cursed bone mage, a reformed knight, and a bone dog, which is a little tiny dog made of bones, and he's the cutest thing in this book. But I adored this book because I think T. Kingfisher has done something extremely difficult, which is to make an entire world and give these characters backstory and an amazing story to begin with in such a short amount of pages. This is a novella. I think it's only 100 something pages long, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved the dark vibes that this book has. I'm finding that I really enjoy T. Kingfisher's writing style. Another book of hers that I read, but not this year, or not in 2024, it was in 2023, was What Moves the Dead, and I enjoyed that one just as much. So yeah, I'm liking that. All right, next up we have a mystery thriller, and this is Local Woman Missing by Mary Kabika. And this is a thriller, and it's multi-POV and multi-timeline, which I'm finding is something that I'm really enjoying with different types of books, not just thrillers. But the premise of the story is that this woman Shelby goes missing, and 2 weeks later Meredith and her daughter Delilah also go missing, and the two are seemingly unconnected. But we start off the book in the future, and the novel works its way back from the future into the past so that we can see what happened and how these two things are related, and you get POVs from different people relating to the story. And I absolutely love this. This has so many little twists and turns that I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time I was reading this, and I'm just gonna say, do check trigger warnings because this book starts off very dark, the first POV that we get, and I didn't know that. It didn't affect me, but I can see how it could affect other people. But I really enjoyed this, and this made me want to read other Mary Kabika novels to see if I enjoy it or if this one is a one-off. All right, and then next up we have Lucy Undying by Kirsten White, and let's take a moment to appreciate this cover because when I saw the cover of this book, I was appalled. It's just amazing. But this is a gothic fantasy about Lucy Westenra, I think is how you say her name, and it's a spin-off or sort of a retelling of Dracula because this character is in the original Dracula story, but we don't really get her story. And so we meet Lucy as she's being turned, and this is not really a spoiler, but this book is also multi-timeline and multi-POV because we're working our way from when we get a POV from when Lucy is recently turned to before she was turned, and also in the future. And in the future is when we meet our other character. Her name is Iris. And you're getting these two stories from these young women. And I like the parallel of Lucy's reality mixing with Iris's. There's such a long period of time in between, but they're essentially dealing with the same thing. And I really enjoyed this. I think this is definitely one of my favorite Kirsten White's books, and I think this is more like horror, but there are some parts of this book that I didn't love, and I think this is one of my criticisms of Kirsten White's writing, is that she attempts to write a lot of different things and different plots in one novel. I still really love this book, but I think it would benefit from only having Lucy's point of view in her story, as opposed to like adding Iris's and this whole thing with her family on the side, and then at the end how the two connect. It's very campy, and I think some people do enjoy that, but I do understand the criticism that I've seen that a lot of people didn't like this because it goes a little like too out there, even though it's a vampire novel, if that makes sense. But I still love this. I still give it, I think, a 4.5 stars. It was definitely one of my favorites last year, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for more of this author's stories because I think she does a really good job. All right, next up we have a nonfiction, and that is Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson. This is a small book. It's, I think, only like 100 and it says it's like over 200 pages. Yeah, but it's a very, it's like small pages. So this is a very small book, but it's extremely interesting if you are interested in getting to know more about astrophysics and how planets and the universe connect. And I think this is a good introductory novel for people that don't know anything about it and are interested, and I absolutely adored this. I think Neil is able to write something that's factual and nonfiction, but in a very gripping manner so that the reader can understand and also keep reading this. It's not written like a textbook, if that makes sense. I loved it, and I automatically after reading this picked up his other novel that I think definitely goes in a lot more depth about the science behind astrophysics and how everything relates. But yeah, if you're interested, I would highly recommend this book. Next up is a book that has definitely caused a lot of, and I shouldn't say this, it caused a lot of stir in my group of friends, but this is Annie Bot by Greer. What's her name? I'm gonna have to look it up. There's so many Greer authors out there that my brain gets confused, but this is Sierra Greer, and I was thinking of Greer Hendricks, which is that's not the correct author. Anyway, Annie Bot is a literary sci-fi, and very soft sci-fi at that, but the premise of this is that Annie is a companion bot. She was bought by our main character Doug to be a girlfriend, essentially, but at the very beginning of this novel, we find out that Doug turned on in a setting in Annie that she learns behaviors and how to react to things as input is given to her. So in this entire novel, you're following this relationship that these two have, and Annie soon and gradually finding out that it's not a good relationship. And it's very similar to how a real quote-unquote woman would find herself in a situation where you think to yourself, like, how did I get here? And I love this. I think it was extremely well done because the things that Doug does to Annie, they're not outright physically problematic. It's more of like the psychological aspects of this and the fact that Annie is programmed to please Doug. She revolves around the fact that she doesn't want to see him displeased. And yeah, I thought this was really trippy. I thought it was really well done. Some criticism that I have been seeing about this book is that a lot of people didn't think it had enough sci-fi, and this book is definitely marketed as sci-fi, and I think that's where it went wrong, because I think the sci-fi aspect of this is just used to highlight this relationship that these two have, which is not healthy at all. And I think people were expecting more, especially from the end of the book, but I think that this ended the way that a lot of these types of relationships end in the real world, and I loved this. I think it was really well done, and I also love this cover. I just had to shout that out because, I don't know, last year they had some really nice covers. All right, let's talk about The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This is also another book that I thought suffered from mismarketing. Not suffered, because I think a lot of people still loved and enjoyed this, but I keep seeing, especially on Goodreads, that this is being called a romantasy, and it's not. Let's just say that this is not a romantasy. The last part, like literally the least important part of the plot, is the romance of this. Let me just tell you what this book's about. This book is a cozy fantasy about our main character Keely and her plant Kaz, who is sentient, and they originally live in this library, but at the very beginning of this novel, the library is being ransacked by rebels, and there's a revolution going on in the city, and so Keely and Kaz grab as many magical books as they can, and they flee the city to go to Keely's home island where she was born and raised before she moved to the city. And you're following them as she acclimates to Life Island in this community that's very different than what she has experienced in the city, because she was very lonely in the city. And in this novel, she has a sense of community. She opens a spell shop to help the people that live in the island, and we just go from there. And it has all the cozy vibes. It's amazing. The character of Kaylee, I've seen a lot of people criticize her because she is she's just not friendly and antisocial, but I do think a lot of people can relate to her in the sense that it's hard to form community if you are that kind of like lone wolf type person. And I really enjoyed this. I loved this book. I've always loved Sarah Beth Durst. I got to know her through the Queen of Blood series, but I think that this is really well done, and I can't wait to get another book in this world. And I think we are getting one. I'm not sure. I'll look that up and I will confirm or deny in the video, but really, really good. And I really loved Kaz, the plant. And yeah, I thought this was extremely well done, super cute. All right, and then a book that I wasn't expecting to love and that I really enjoyed is a romantasy. And this is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I read this, I think this is the last book I read in 2024, but I read it on Kindle Unlimited and I just kept seeing people talk about it. And I said, why not? I'm in the mood for it, so I'll pick it up. But I thought that this had a lot more plot than I was expecting from a romantasy, especially, and I think I'm judging a lot of books based on no evidence, but I feel like a lot of the KU romantasy is kind of more romance forward as opposed to the plot. But I think this was really well done. I think this was distributed really well. I think both the romance part and the fantasy part of this was really well done. So this starts off with our main character, Saris, and she lives in a world where life is extremely hard, and so she has to do whatever she can to survive and help her brother survive. And at the very beginning of this, she is found to have stolen something, and the queen is after her. This is sort of a portal fantasy because as she's fleeing for her life, she accidentally goes into this world of fairy, and no human has gone there in recent years. I'm not sure the actual amount of time, but it's been a long time that these fae have seen a human. And our main character also has powers that she keeps hidden because she feels that people will take advantage of her if they know what she can do. We also meet the male main character. His name is Kingfisher, and he is like a troubled soul pretty much, and Saris is getting to know him and his friends. I thought the sort of like inkling of found family of this is really well done too, and that's definitely one of my favorite things in fantasy or fantasy romance in general, that we get to know their friends also, or in his friends. But yeah, I loved this, and I can't wait till we get the next book. I'm curious to see what happens. All right, and then last but certainly not least, I think this is definitely one of my favorite, definitely top 3 favorite books of last year, and that is The Dollmakers by Lynn Buchanan. I got this as an ARC, and then I bought the actual physical copy. This is sort of a genre blend of a novel because it's marketed as fantasy but with a hint of horror. We have our main character Cheyenne, and she lives in this world called One, and the world is plagued by these monsters called shods. And in this world, people to help they can be doll makers, which is they make these amazing dolls that are strong enough to fight the shods, and is the only thing they have found that actually fights the shods. Cheyenne is an apprentice, and at the very beginning of the novel, she's getting her license to be able to be a full-fledged doll maker. And we find out very quickly that the people that are testing her, they feel that her dolls fall into the category of the dolls that are made for people to appreciate, so like art. And Cheyenne absolutely loses her mind because of this. She goes and tries to do something to change the mind of the people that gave her the license because she feels it's unfair because her dolls are strong and beautiful. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. And I think the part I love the most about this book is definitely the setting in the world, because for the majority of this novel, for the half of the novel, Cheyenne makes terrible decisions, and she is immature and doing things that are just, as the reader, you're just rolling your eyes at her. But the world is what kept me reading, because even though this is on Goodreads it says it's a standalone. I feel like this is only the first novel in this world, and I think the author will write other novels to expand the world even more, and I really enjoyed it. The character does feel like, I think, in my opinion, she does get redeemed at the end, like towards the end of this, and yeah, I really, really love this. I love the whole lore and why do we have the shots in this world, and it's pretty amazing. I absolutely adored this, and I think for a debut novel, this is one heck of a book. Alright friends, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you haven't, and let me know in the comments what were your favorite books of last year. Even though I'm filming this very late, it's already March, I felt like better late than ever. But anyway, I will talk to you guys in the next one. Goodbye.